Hey YouTube, what up? Welcome back to another video. Alright, in this video, I want to speak about light-skinned and biracial women who date dark-skinned men but do not want dark-skinned children. And you may not really hear this expressed openly because I think, the light-skinned women and biracial women who do engage in this behavior, by the way, because not all do, not all of them do, all right, but there's some, who do, but you won't hear them openly expressing this, right? Um, but I think this still is something that you may sort of pick up on if you perhaps have interacted with a light-skinned woman or a biracial woman who has, dark-skinned black children and may feel some type of way about that. All right, you may. But the thing is, I think for these particular women, it's like low-key, kind of like a fetish, low-key, similar to what perhaps some white women and probably women of other races may engage in, where they want kind of like that. They want to fulfill their Mandingo, King Kong, Kunta Kinte, African King fantasies, right? But they don't necessarily want to deal with the product of fulfilling those that comes after you fulfill those fantasies, sexual fantasies, right? Um, and the thing is, I, you know, expected from women of other races, right? Low key, but when it comes to people within the community, then it's like that's a little like it gets you to start to think a little bit like, okay, what do you think about dark skinned people in general, right? Are you kind of like on some like low key light skinned supremacist type shit, you know? Um, and to be fair, there's also some dark skinned men who sort of engage in behavior similar to this, where they want to be with this light skinned or biracial woman, but when their children, particularly or especially like their sons, come out light skinned, then all of a sudden, things sort of like things change, and then the dark skinned dad starts acting funny with the kid and maybe not even claiming the kid, right? So it kind of goes both ways, right? And even when it comes to, the dark skinned men dating outside the community, it happens like that too, right? That's why you low key hear about these like black men being absentee fathers of biracial children. um, and and maybe because they maybe feel like they don't see themselves reflected in their children. And of course, there's a lot of other things that go into that, but I'm just saying that could be like a possible reason, you know. Mm. But back to the light skinned women and the biracial women for a moment. I think, they do, desire the dark skinned men, but they don't want necessarily the dark skinned children that could possibly come along with the dark skinned men. And especially, I don't think they want their daughters to be dark skinned too, because one, they may want to view themselves or see themselves reflected through their daughters, right? And also, they may feel some type of a way about dark skinned women. You know, of course, like I said, this is not all, but some. Yeah. And some dark skinned men may not really pick up on it, right? Or may even care about it, really. Because they may be on the same shit too, low key. Some of these, they definitely be participating in um, the whiteout blackout agenda, the black erasure agenda. But think about it for a moment. Wouldn't that seem a little strange if like someone you were dating said, you guys were kind of like at a point when you were thinking about having children, married or not, whatever. Um, and the person said to you, oh, I can't wait to have kids. Hopefully they take my complexion. Wouldn't that be a little strange? Wouldn't that make you think, oh, like, but what if they come out with my skin tone? How would you feel about that, right? Also, like if someone said, I prefer our children come out with my skin tone versus your skin tone. Again, like, okay, what's wrong with my skin? Like, you know, you know. And then when they ask about it, they may say like, oh, your skin tone is beautiful. I like your skin tone, but I just don't want it on our children, though. Then again, like, what's wrong with my skin tone on our children, right? Because while I don't think those conversations actually happen, I still think that mentality is at play. You know, um, you know, and I'll say to the light skinned folks, both men and women, who want light skinned children, I think you should have a child with a light skinned person. And I think the light skinned men get this. I just think that the light skinned women tend to be a little on the slow train with this. Um, they kind of want like both. They want like, oh, they want to get rid of the light skinned dude, want the dark skinned dude, but want the light skinned children. Yeah, yeah, go figure. Mhm. And as well, I'll say to the dark skinned folk, both male and female, but it tends to the dark skinned females tend to be on the up and up with this and tend to think logically about this more so. Um, but the dark skinned men, like if but to both of them, if you want a dark skinned child, have a child with a dark skinned person. Like this isn't rocket science, right? I know that sometimes when two dark skinned people can't come together and create kind of like a light skinned person, that can happen. But okay, then you kind of have you have something legitimate there. But come on, let's be real though. And also, if it's your kid, I don't think you should be complaining about their complexion as long as it's just healthy, you know, healthy skin, But um, many of these dudes, like some, not all, but some of these dark skinned dudes do kind of have like these like low key exotica woman, you know, biracial, racially ambiguous fantasies, right? Even white fantasies, even Snow White fantasies and Cave Beckett fantasies that they want to fulfill with this, light skinned biracial woman. You know, but sometimes they don't like the product of that. They don't like the product of their, um, you know, self hate issues or their, self worth or self esteem type issues. Okay, they don't like the product of that. They don't like seeing that product in their face every day. Especially when the product is their light skinned son. All right, they don't like that. And again, it's not all, okay? Because I know some folks gonna be getting in their feelings in the comments section, okay? It's not all, because I know there are dark skinned men who definitely love their light skinned children and accept them and nurture them, care for them, love them, etc. Right? But I'm just saying for those who may have this mentality, This is why I'm saying that. And the same goes for the light-skinned and biracial females, right? I know that they have dark-skinned children and they, you know, think they're the best thing ever, right? But there's some that don't have that mentality, and that's why I'm making this video to call that out. All right, to call out that mentality. Yeah. But is it okay to want a child with the same skin tone as you? Sure, it's okay. You have that right to have a child who you feel is reflective of you, right? Although, the child can look like you, but not necessarily have the same skin tone as you. It can say your child can have the same facial structure as you, you know. But, like I said, it is okay if you're a dark-skinned person who wants a dark-skinned child. That is okay. That's okay. Just don't be nasty and rude about it, right? And also be logical about it, right? And as well, if you're a light-skinned person, it's okay if you want a light-skinned child, or a biracial. I don't know how that works, but it's okay if you're light-skinned or biracial and want a light-skinned or biracial child. Okay, it's okay. You want a child who you feel maybe more reflective of you. It's okay, right? Again, just don't be like ignorant about it, right? Don't be dumb about it. But I will say that I think you should, love and accept your child no matter what. I don't think that that should be a deal breaker for a parent to not love and accept their child and care for their child. Like, oh, don't look like me. I'm out, right? At least as far as like it's your child. I'm not saying you should take care of a child that's not yours and who's being passed off as your child. But what I'm saying is, if your child just doesn't have the same skin tone as you, then that should not be a deal breaker for you. And if it is a deal breaker for you, then you should not engage in behavior and activities with certain folk who will not produce a child who is reflective of you in skin tone. Okay? All right. But I said all I have to say. What do you have to say? Let me know in the comments section. Thanks for watching. Adios and goodbye for now.